Benjamin Netanyahu's psychopathy and mass terror are not only attracting people who want to take him down from outside of Israel, we have more and more people inside of Israel trying to take his life. Now we had this video coming from Israel of flash bombs being launched at Benjamin Netanyahu's house in Caesarea. This was published just a couple of hours ago. And the police is yet to make any arrests when it comes to the people who are in charge of launching these light bombs or flash bombs on Benjamin Netanyahu's house. This is a step up, a very dangerous step up, and this is considered to be an assassination attempt against Benjamin Netanyahu from someone within Israel. But before we talk about the details of the attack and who might be behind this attack, it's important to clarify that Benjamin Netanyahu faces regular protests for years against him from within Israel. Some of the most significant protests we had against him were from Israelis who were criticizing his war in Gaza. And at one point, we had Israelis flying in paragliders next to his house to resemble the 7th of October attacks earlier in 2024. Now we have this. Before that, we had assassination attempts coming from Hezbollah against Benjamin Netanyahu with a drone that reached his bedroom. We heard explosions reports next to his house yesterday, indicating that there are more assassination attempts against him. Benjamin Netanyahu hasn't been moving unless authorized by the head of his security. He is not conducting meetings with his government and cabinet members in any locations that are known to the public. They constantly move from one place to the other. But now people are directly attacking him from within Israel, and no arrests have been made yet. Who are these people? Well, firstly, it's important to clarify that Benjamin Netanyahu's house is one of the most secure and places that are under surveillance in Israel. It's constantly monitored. You have security teams around the clock, cameras around the clock, very high-level security measures. So no one can just go and throw light bombs, right, or flash bombs on Benjamin Netanyahu's house like that. So if someone does that, he should be immediately arrested and known, because there's surveillance. This indicates that what? That someone might have committed this from within the establishment in Israel. And there are very many reasons from people within the establishment, either the security establishment, someone who has power, someone is tied to powerful figures, or from within the army or the security establishment in Israel to do that. Why? Because Benjamin Netanyahu has feuds almost with everyone. He sacked the defense minister. He has problems with the IDF chief of staff. He spies on figures within the military and security establishment. The levels of distrust are unprecedented in Israel. And we spoke about the reports a couple of days ago that Benjamin Netanyahu has direct teams within the Israeli army that report to him directly and leak information without due diligence and without following the chain of command when it comes to Israel. Meaning, well, he doesn't trust many people, and there are many people who don't like him, let alone the fact that the majority of the Israeli public view him as the person who is responsible for sending Israelis to die for no reason in these wars. And he is the person leading to the deaths of the kidnapped Israelis in Gaza due to the lack of an agreement being reached, primarily by Benjamin Netanyahu. Most of the people surrounding Benjamin Netanyahu in power already agreed to a ceasefire. That's back from the beginning of 2024, after the temporary ceasefire ended within a couple of months. Then we had the Palestinian side agreeing to a ceasefire, Joe Biden declaring that they agreed to reach a ceasefire, and more kidnapped Israelis were still alive in Gaza. So many Israelis are saying that no, it's Benjamin Netanyahu killing them. He is responsible because he hasn't reached a deal, and he is only proceeding with his wars for his own sake, not for the sake of the Israeli population. We have violence being taken against the families of the kidnapped Israelis in Gaza, physical violence, verbal violence, sisters and brothers of those who are kidnapped. There is a lot of hate towards them, saying that they are serving the Palestinian side simply because they criticize the way things are being run by the Netanyahu government. All of these things show that there is a massive resistance from within Israel to Benjamin Netanyahu and his government, not only by the civilian population, but also by people in power. And this attack on Benjamin Netanyahu's house is a very dangerous escalation. We had responses coming from Israel and many sides condemning what is happening, including people in the opposition. But the most interesting comments came from one of Netanyahu's closest aides in the government, who is the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Justice, Yariv Levin. Yariv Levin is a man who is considered to be one of the masterminds behind the judicial reform attempts in Israel, the judicial reforms that had many Israelis protesting all throughout the year in 2023 in the streets in record numbers. He took advantage of this attack and he started to promote the judicial reform again. He said there was no need for the lighting bombs to be fired tonight at Prime Minister Netanyahu's house to understand the seriousness of the rampant violence and the refusal of those who are trying to dismantle the country from within. I reject outright the assertion by the police and the Shin Bet, criticizing the enforcement bodies and the Shin Bet, that this is a serious incident. This is not just another serious incident. It is a link in a chain of violent and anarchistic actions, the purpose of which is to lead to the murder of the prime minister and overthrow the elected government through a violent coup. The chain of these actions is being carried out for about 2 years now under the auspices of the selective enforcement of the law enforcement authorities. Again, criticism for the authorities. This criminal conduct was, of course, also approved by the High Court of Justice. He's blaming the courts, which rejected the petition submitted by Minister Wasserloff in this regard. Since the formation of the government, I have been fighting to fundamentally change things, to change the composition of the Supreme Court, to fix the system of legal advice to the government, and to put an end to the selective enforcement. He means having full control by the government on the judicial system, meaning that the government will control and dictate everything that happens in Israel from a legal perspective, to, in effect, turning Israel into officially a total dictatorship. He continued, the time has come for all members of the coalition, all the factions, all the members of the Knesset to announce as one man about the unequivocal support for the moves that I led and stopped, and for the move necessary to change the situation. The time has come for full support to be given to restore the justice system and the law enforcement systems, and to put an end to the anarchy, the defiance, and the attempts to harm the prime minister. There were also other criticisms coming from Netanyahu's closest allies, saying that this is a massive escalation and we need to stop it before we reach a case of murder, a case of assassination against the prime minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. We are facing a very serious situation, and Benjamin Netanyahu's life is definitely at risk. In recent weeks, we have been speaking about the reports coming from Israel about networks from within Israel working for Iran and countries that have hostilities with Israel, knowingly indicating that many Israelis and Israeli Jews from all walks of life, male, female, age groups, different age groups, have more faith in Israel's biggest enemies than they have with or in Benjamin Netanyahu and his government. And again, not many of these things are being published enough to the relevant level when it comes to mainstream media. What's the message that we're getting here? The message that we're getting here is that not only is, of course, Benjamin Netanyahu committing massacres and a mass genocide against the Palestinian people and the Lebanese and behaving in a psychopathic, terrorist way against so many nations and acting recklessly, is making Israel a bigger threat to the world, to global security, to populations all across the world. But this is also a massive indication of the complicity and deliberate ignorance, or deliberately putting aside the facts when it comes to Israel by the people who are allied with Israel and support Israel, primarily the United States administration and some of the European establishments still supporting Israel. We have a case where there is a genocidal regime committing mass war crimes against the Palestinian people and against the Lebanese and against other people in the region, wreaking havoc, massive instability. And these powers that are still supporting him are ignoring all of those things and ignoring the fact that there is a high level of disapproval from within. Now, ever since the beginning of the war, I personally said that there is a perfect recipe to conduct a regime change, enforce a regime change from outside within Israel. Why? Because you have a regime that is flawed from its core, a neo-fascist regime based on apartheid, supremacy, ethnic cleansing, massacres, committing war crimes, mass terror, a genuine risk not only to the people they oppress, but also to their own population, especially those who oppress them. There is disapproval from the establishment to a high level against Benjamin Netanyahu, and there is disapproval from the people. All of these are perfect recipes. And usually the United States and its allies, they will conduct military coups for things that are way smaller than that when it comes to countries that they don't like. However, to them, Israel is different. But now is the time to have a reflection and change way when it comes to this country, even before an assassination happens. Because if an assassination happens, you could potentially lose control over how things are. But now is the perfect time to take the initiative, change the course, and take down the supremacist regime in Israel and replace it with a democratic and equal government. What are these people waiting for? If this continues down the same path, Benjamin Netanyahu will most likely be assassinated. If Benjamin Netanyahu is assassinated, many of his cult followers would wage an all-out war, not to hand the power to their opposition. And you could be facing a situation where someone even more reckless and extreme than Netanyahu himself, taking power in a country that is already reckless and committing mass terror and mass war crimes, as confirmed by the International Court for Justice. Therefore, it would lead to even a bigger threat when it comes to its own population, the populations of the region, and the global population as well.